Thank you so much. Well, before we continue our culinary education, let's get into quite an interesting and contentious topic of taking a gap year. No life path is the same, so for some it might work, for others not so. But there are some vital points that you need to consider when discussing this between parent and child, and Nikki Bush is on hand to delve back into that conversation.
So earlier this morning, we spoke about the growing trend of students taking gap years between high school and university, and we're continuing that conversation right now with our regular creative parenting expert, Nikki Bush. Nikki, I love this topic, gap years. I'm all for it. You know, if my boy's going to come to me and it's like, Dad, you know what, I want to take a gap year when I finish school, I'll be like, you know what, that is exactly what you should do. Now, we also mentioned that there's a whole lot of options available when it comes to gap years, so it's really finding your interest and then going out in that field and, you know, doing something completely different to maybe what you're doing right now. But let's talk about grown-ups here for a second. Are forward-thinking companies really in favor of something like a gap year?
They absolutely are, you. And so you take companies like Google or 3M, for example, who are on the cutting edge of being the most innovative companies in the world. And they've discovered that if you don't give employees time to pause, time to think, time to actually do something they wouldn't normally do in a day, they cannot come up with creative, innovative ideas. So I know, for example, at 3M, I think they give their employees 4 hours a week to do something different, to work on not their own projects, but other people's projects, or an idea they've had, to start developing an idea they have that's not part of their normal job spec. At Google, for example, every 3 years, you get 3 months mandatory leave.
Really? Fully
paid, where you must go away, do something outside of the workplace, and then come back, your job is guaranteed. So it's important to step back to gain that perspective and to rekindle, I think, that sense of creativity that we all have within us. But it gets so stifled by the humdrum of daily life and getting the to-do list done.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, the value of something like this for an adult. I mean, how would you unpack that? Because you mentioned, obviously, creativity is one big factor.
So I like to talk about filling your cup. Okay, and our cups are often running on empty.
Sounds like this whole love language
thing going on. A little bit, absolutely. Well, it's about loving yourself, and it's about feeding yourself and nourishing yourself and making sure that you give yourself all the ingredients to be firing on all cylinders, because I think we burn out very quickly. I mean, we are only at the end of February, and I'm looking at children at school in high school who are doing loads of extramural activities, lots of work at school, lots of heavy pressure, and they are already exhausted and on their knees, and it's only the end of February.
I'm already looking at that Christmas box. It's like, can I get that Christmas tree out already? You know, it's crazy. It's been a very fast year. Now, if you can't afford to take a full year as a gap year, we know there's different options as well. I mean, how can you really benefit from just taking a break, taking that little gap?
So let's start with young people. So if you don't have the money to send them overseas, to spend a lot of money, because some of these gap years, if they are organised by outside organisations, can be very expensive. But you can set up your own gap year where you get your child work experience for 2 weeks or a month, you know, in different places, some of which can be volunteerism kind of work for non-profits, and some could be in areas of interest where they might want to work one day. Because let's face it, most young people actually don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, that's it. I was one of those.
Yeah. Most of us were those people. So you can create that kind of self-made gap year. If you're an adult like us, we can't afford to take a year off work,
Exactly.
You know, it can start in small ways, whether it be that we actually sit and take 1 hour cup of coffee with ourselves and nobody else every now and again, maybe just once a week, and maybe extend that to your hobbies, where you actually take a couple of hours once a week or a couple of hours a month, or maybe you can't afford to take a whole year off, but maybe you could take 2 weeks where you actually can just immerse yourself in stuff you don't normally do.
Yeah, because it does take about 2 weeks for one's mind to switch off, because the first week is still kind of winding down. But Nikki, you really seem to have, you know, you've got so much knowledge to share, and I know that you're also going to be at an event in Johannesburg for parents and educators.
4th of April, I'm organising an event in Joburg called Raising Talent for the New World of Work. And in that presentation, it's going to be about a 2.5 hour event in the evening. Just get on to nikkibush.com to find out more about it. But Samir Roji from the Google O School of Life Design, he's the Dean of the School of Life Design at Google, is going to be sharing the platform with me. He's only 28. He's a South African living abroad in Dublin, where he started this School of Life Design, and he has amazing insights to offer. So it would be fantastic for our viewers to come and join us.
So the 4th of April, and people can get more details on nikkibush.com.
That's right.
That's where it is. All right, so we've been talking about gap years on your Feel Good Breakfast Show this morning. Very, very interesting, not just for students, but for us grown-ups as well. That's in full work mode. You are allowed to actually take a bit of a gap year. So let us know what you think about it, about gap years. You can connect with us on our social media pages, Expresso Morning Show, SABC3 on Facebook, and @Expresso Show on Twitter. Would love to hear from you.